You don't demand respect, you command it. And you don't buy loyalty, you inspire it. The most powerful leaders in history didn't need titles to gain devotion. They moved with such certainty, others followed without question. Respect is earned in how you carry yourself. Loyalty is built through how you lead. In this video, I'll teach you the exact mindset and methods I use to lead armies, build empires, and forge unbreakable allegiance. Subscribe to our channel if you're ready to master your mind, and tell us, where are you watching from? Listen to me carefully. Respect is not something you demand. It is not something you beg for. It is something you draw out of people through the sheer force of who you are. I have seen men with every advantage, wealth, title, bloodline, command nothing. And I have seen common soldiers with nothing but conviction move mountains. The difference is not what they possess. The difference is what they project. Respect lives in the space between intention and action. Most men think of what they want to do. Fewer men decide what they will do, but the rarest men, the ones who command respect, they simply do. No hesitation, no second-guessing, no apologies for their certainty. When I was a young artillery officer, I had no noble birth, no family fortune, no connections in high places. What I had was something far more powerful. I had an unshakable belief in my own competence, and I carried myself like a man who had already conquered what others were still planning. Here's what most people don't understand about respect. It is not earned through perfection. It is earned through decisive action in the face of uncertainty. Every man makes mistakes, but only some men make decisions. When you move with purpose while others hesitate, you become the center of gravity in any room. Your body language speaks before your mouth opens. Your posture announces your intentions before you state them. Your eyes communicate your level of commitment before you make any promises. People sense strength before they hear words. They feel authority before they understand arguments. I learned this at the siege of Toulon. I was 24 years old, unknown, unproven. But I walked into that war council with the bearing of a man who had already solved their problem. I didn't ask for permission to present my plan. I presented it. I didn't seek approval for my strategy. I explained how victory would unfold. The generals were twice my age, with 10 times my experience. But in that moment, I was the only man in the room who spoke with certainty. Respect is not about being the loudest voice. It is about being the clearest voice. When confusion reigns, clarity commands. When others debate possibilities, you state realities. When they discuss problems, you present solutions. But let me ask you this. How do you walk into a room? Do you enter seeking approval, or do you enter offering value? Do you wait to be invited to speak, or do you speak when speaking serves the mission? Do you apologize for taking up space, or do you occupy the space you require to succeed? Respect is drawn out of people when they recognize something in you that they wish they possessed. Confidence without arrogance, strength without cruelty, certainty without stubbornness. You become magnetic not because you demand attention, but because you focus attention. The moment you start chasing respect, you have already lost it. Desperate energy repels. Needy behavior diminishes. But when you move with the quiet confidence of a man who knows his worth, others cannot help but take notice. Respect is earned one decision at a time, one moment of clarity when others are confused, one act of courage when others hesitate, one display of competence when others make excuses. You don't announce your worthiness, you demonstrate it. Tomorrow, when you walk into your first meeting, your first conversation, your first challenge, remember this. You are not there to prove you deserve respect. You are there to give others a reason to offer it willingly. People won't die for your orders. They'll die for your vision. Loyalty starts the moment your actions match your mission. I have commanded hundreds of thousands of men. I have led them across frozen rivers and scorching deserts. I have asked them to march when their feet bled and fight when their hearts broke, and they followed, not because they had to, because they wanted to. You want to know the secret of loyalty? It has nothing to do with friendship. It has nothing to do with being liked. Loyalty is born when people believe in what you're building more than they fear what they're risking. Most leaders think loyalty means getting people to do what you want. This is backwards thinking. True loyalty means getting people to want what you want. When your vision becomes their vision, orders become unnecessary. They move because the mission moves them. At Austerlitz, I didn't need to convince my soldiers to fight. They had seen me share their hardships. They had watched me make decisions that saved their lives. They had witnessed me put the mission above my comfort and their success above my glory. By the time we faced the enemy, they weren't fighting for Napoleon. They were fighting for the future we had painted together. Here's what most people don't understand about leadership. Leadership is not about being in charge. Leadership is about taking charge. There is a difference. Being in charge is a position. Taking charge is an action. When crisis strikes, people don't rally around titles. They rally around the person who moves first with purpose. They follow the one who stays calm while others panic. They trust the leader who makes hard decisions, while others delay. I learned this during my first campaign in Italy. I was given an army that was hungry, unpaid, and demoralized. The easy choice would have been to wait for supplies, reinforcements, better conditions. Instead, I chose to act. I explained to my men that we would take what we needed from our enemies. Victory would feed us. Success would pay us. Glory would sustain us. I didn't ask them to trust the plan. I asked them to trust the leader who would execute the plan. And then I showed them that their trust was not misplaced. We won battle after battle. We took city after city. We transformed defeat into triumph through action, not discussion. Loyalty is built on 3 foundations: competence, character, and commitment. People must believe you can achieve what you promise. They must trust that you will do what you say, and they must see that you care more about the outcome than the credit. Competence without character creates fear, not loyalty. People may follow you, but they will abandon you the moment a better option appears. Character without competence creates sympathy, not loyalty. People may like you, but they won't bet their future on you. But when you combine competence with character and fuel both with visible commitment to something greater than yourself, you create something powerful. You create believers, and believers will move mountains. But let me ask you this: what are you asking people to believe in? Is it your success or their success? Is it your vision or their role in that vision? Is it your glory or their growth? Loyalty cannot be bought with benefits or bargained for with promises. It must be earned through shared struggle and mutual respect. When people see you sacrifice for the mission, they become willing to sacrifice for the mission. When they watch you carry more than your share of the burden, they volunteer to carry more than their share. I have seen commanders who ruled through fear. Their men obeyed in their presence and rebelled in their absence. I have seen leaders who tried to buy devotion with favors and gifts. Their followers scattered the moment the rewards stopped flowing. But I have also seen leaders who inspired absolute loyalty through nothing more than consistent example. They shared the hardships, they kept their word, they put the mission first, and themselves second. Their people followed them not because they had to, but because they could not imagine following anyone else. True loyalty is not about getting people to serve you. It is about serving something worthy enough that others want to serve it too. When you find a cause bigger than yourself and pursue it with everything you have, others will join that pursuit, not for you, but with you. The loyalty you inspire today determines the legacy you leave tomorrow. Power may turn heads, but integrity wins hearts. The true foundation of respect is strength backed by principle. I have watched empires built on fear crumble overnight. I have seen dynasties founded on deception collapse within a generation. But I have also witnessed leaders whose influence outlasted their lives because they understood a fundamental truth. Strength without character is tyranny, and tyranny always destroys itself. When I crossed the Alps, my men didn't follow me because I held rank over them. They followed because they had seen me share their rations when supplies ran low. They had watched me tend to their wounds before my own. They knew that my strength served something greater than my ambition. Strength is what gets people's attention, but character is what keeps their devotion. Any man can flex his authority. Any fool can bark orders and demand compliance. But only leaders of character can inspire others to give their best effort willingly, repeatedly, over time. Here's what most people don't understand about true strength. It is not measured by what you can force others to do. It is measured by what you inspire them to become. Weak leaders create followers. Strong leaders create leaders. I promoted soldiers based on merit, not birth. I rewarded courage, not connections. I built my grande armée on the principle that every man carried a marshal's baton in his knapsack. This wasn't charity. This was strategy. When people believe their effort will be recognized, they give more effort. When they trust that excellence will be rewarded, they pursue excellence. But strength without principle becomes destructive. I have seen powerful men abuse their position, exploit their people, and mistake fear for respect. They ruled through intimidation and called it leadership. Their reigns were swift and their falls were spectacular. Character is what separates commanders from conquerors. Commanders take territory. Conquerors win hearts. Commanders gain temporary compliance. Conquerors earn lasting loyalty. The difference is not in their strength, but in how they use that. Strength. When I governed, I didn't simply impose my will. I established laws that protected the weak and empowered the capable. The Code Napoleon wasn't about my legacy. It was about creating a system where merit mattered more than birthright. This is character in action, using power to build something better, not just something bigger. But let me ask you this. When you have the advantage, how do you use it? When you hold power over others, do you serve yourself or serve the mission? When people depend on your decisions, do you choose what's easy or what's right? Character reveals itself in 3 moments. How you treat those who can do nothing for you, how you behave when no one is watching, how you respond when doing the right thing costs you something valuable. I could have executed prisoners after victory. I could have plundered conquered cities. I could have ruled through terror and called it efficiency. Instead, I chose to govern through law, lead through example, and build through merit. Not because I was weak, but because I understood that lasting power requires lasting respect. Attention is temporary. Today's strong man becomes tomorrow's forgotten tyrant, but character creates influence that survives death itself. The leaders we remember centuries later are not the ones who were merely powerful. They are the ones who used their power with wisdom, justice, and purpose. Your strength gets you in the room. Your character determines whether people want you to stay. Your power can force compliance. Your integrity inspires commitment. Your authority can demand obedience. Your character earns devotion. Build your strength, but guard your character more carefully. Strength can be taken from you through defeat, age, or circumstance, but character belongs to you forever. And it is character that transforms temporary success into permanent legacy. Remember this, people follow strength, but they serve character. Command doesn't begin with words. It begins with how you enter a room. Body, posture, eye contact, this is leadership before speech. Before I ever spoke at the Council of 500, before I addressed the Directory, before I gave my first order as emperor, I had already communicated everything they needed to know about who I was, not through words, through presence. When I walked into those chambers, my shoulders were back, my eyes were focused, my stride was purposeful. I didn't hurry, but I didn't hesitate. I moved like a man who belonged exactly where he was going, and because I believed it, they believed it too. Here's what most people don't understand about influence. Communication begins the moment you appear. Your body language speaks louder than your voice. Your posture announces your intentions before you state them. Your eyes communicate your level of confidence before you make any claims. I have seen brilliant men with excellent ideas fail to convince anyone because they carried themselves like they were asking for permission to exist. I have watched mediocre men with average thoughts command attention because they projected absolute certainty in their right to be heard. Your presence is your first argument. Before you explain what you think, people have already decided whether they want to listen. Before you present your credentials, they have already determined whether you seem credible. Before you ask for their trust, they have already sensed whether you trust yourself. At Wagram, before the battle began, I rode slowly along the line of soldiers. I didn't give speeches. I didn't make promises. I simply let them see their emperor among them, calm and confident, ready for what was to come. My presence told them everything. We are prepared. We will prevail. We move forward together. Presence is not about being the loudest person in the room. It is about being the most centered person in the room. When others are scattered, you are focused. When others are anxious, you are steady. When others are reactive, you are responsive. But let me ask you this. When you walk into a meeting, what do people see? Do they see someone who hopes to be taken seriously, or someone who expects to be taken seriously? Do they see uncertainty disguised as humility, or confidence tempered by respect? Your handshake should feel like a commitment. Your eye contact should convey attention and respect. Your posture should reflect your internal state of readiness. These are not superficial details. These are the foundation of first impressions, and first impressions shape every interaction that follows. I learned this lesson early in my career. During my first meeting with the directory, I could have approached them as a supplicant, grateful for their attention. Instead, I entered as a solution to their problems, ready to discuss terms of mutual benefit. The difference in my bearing changed everything about how they saw me and what they were willing to offer. Presence is built on 3 pillars: preparation, purpose, and poise. You must know why you are there. You must be clear about what you want to accomplish. And you must remain calm regardless of what unfolds. Preparation shows in your readiness to engage. Purpose shows in your clarity of intention. Poise shows in your ability to maintain composure under pressure. When these 3 elements align, you don't just enter a room, you command it. But presence without substance is theater. You cannot fake competence forever. You cannot project confidence you don't possess indefinitely. True presence comes from genuine preparation, authentic purpose, and earned poise. When you know your subject thoroughly, when you believe in your mission completely, when you have faced challenges successfully, these experiences become part of your bearing. You move differently because you are different. You speak differently because you think differently. This is why I spent years studying military history, mathematics, geography, and politics. This is why I personally inspected fortifications, talked with common soldiers, and learned the details of supply chains, not just to gather information, but to build the internal foundation that would support external confidence. Your presence is the accumulation of everything you have learned, overcome, and achieved. It cannot be borrowed or copied. It must be built through experience, tested through challenge, and refined through reflection. Command presence isn't born, it's forged, and it begins with how you carry yourself in the next room you enter. Nothing commands more respect than clarity in chaos. Learn how to speak and act like a man who knows exactly what he wants. At the Battle of Rivoli, I faced a moment that would define my career. Enemy forces were converging from 3 directions. My generals were offering conflicting advice. Time was running out. In that moment of maximum confusion, I did something that separated me from every other commander on that field. I became absolutely clear. I didn't debate possibilities. I stated realities. I didn't discuss options. I gave orders. I didn't worry about perfection. I chose direction. And because I spoke with complete certainty, my army moved with complete confidence. Here's what most people don't understand about decision-making. The quality of your decision matters less than the speed and conviction with which you make it. A good decision executed with certainty beats a perfect decision paralyzed by doubt every single time. Clarity is not about having all the answers. Clarity is about being decisive with the information you have. When others are lost in analysis, you choose action. When they debate probabilities, you commit to a path. When they seek more data, you work with current data. I have seen brilliant men fail because they could see too many possibilities. They understood every variable, considered every outcome, anticipated every risk. But understanding everything paralyzed them from doing anything. Knowledge without decision is worthless. Intelligence without action is impotence. Decisive leaders don't wait for perfect conditions. They create conditions through decisive action. They don't seek guaranteed outcomes. They make their chosen outcome more likely through unwavering commitment. When I decided to crown myself emperor, half of Europe thought I was mad. My advisors warned me about the risks. My enemies predicted my downfall. But I had analyzed the situation, chosen my course, and committed completely. My certainty convinced others to support what they might otherwise have opposed. But let me ask you this. When faced with important decisions, do you act from clarity or confusion? Do you speak from certainty or hesitation? Do you move forward with conviction or drift sideways with caution? Clarity begins in your mind before it appears in your words. You must first be clear about what you want, why you want it, and how you intend to achieve it. Fuzzy thinking creates fuzzy communication. Confused leaders create confused followers. Before every major campaign, I would spend hours alone with maps, reports, and my thoughts. Not to gather more information, but to organize the information I had into a clear picture of reality and a clear plan of action. By the time I spoke to my marshals, every word was deliberate, every instruction was specific, every expectation was defined. Decisive communication has three elements: be direct, be specific, be final. Don't hide your meaning behind diplomatic language. Don't leave room for misinterpretation. Don't invite debate when you need action. Direct means saying exactly what you mean without apology or explanation beyond what's necessary. Specific means giving clear instructions that cannot be misunderstood. Final means speaking as though the decision has been made, not as though it might be reconsidered. When I told my army we would march on Moscow, I didn't say, perhaps we should consider, or it might be beneficial to explore. I said, we march on Moscow. Clear, direct, final. No room for doubt, no invitation for debate, no suggestion that other options were being considered. But decisiveness without flexibility is stubbornness. Being unshakable doesn't mean being unchangeable. It means being unshakable in your commitment to the mission while remaining adaptable in your methods. I changed tactics dozens of times during my campaigns. I adjusted strategies based on new intelligence. I modified plans when conditions shifted, but I never wavered. In my fundamental objectives, I was flexible in approach, unshakable in purpose. The moment you communicate uncertainty, you transfer that uncertainty to everyone around you. But when you speak with conviction, that conviction becomes contagious. Your certainty creates their confidence. Your clarity eliminates their confusion. In your next important conversation, remember this. Speak like a man who has already decided, because you have. Leadership is not humiliation. Loyalty grows in the soil of dignity. Master the psychology of public praise and private correction. I once had a marshal who made a critical error that cost us precious time and valuable resources. In front of the entire general staff, he expected public rebuke, immediate demotion, perhaps even disgrace. Instead, I praised his courage under fire and his dedication to the mission. Later, in private, I taught him exactly what had gone wrong and how to ensure it never happened again. That marshal became one of my most devoted commanders, not because I was soft on mistakes, but because I understood the psychology of human dignity. Public humiliation destroys loyalty. Private correction builds competence. Here's what most people don't understand about motivation. People will repeat behaviors that make them feel valued and avoid behaviors that make them feel worthless. When you correct someone in front of others, you teach them to avoid risk, hide mistakes, and cover failures. When you correct someone in private, you teach them to trust your guidance and seek your counsel. I have seen leaders who thought public correction was effective leadership. They believed that making an example of one person would motivate everyone else. This is backwards thinking. Public humiliation creates fear, not excellence. Fear makes people defensive, not decisive. But I have also seen leaders who avoid all of correction, thinking this preserves relationships. This is equally destructive. People need feedback to improve. They want to know when they're falling short and how to rise higher. The question is not whether to correct, but how to correct effectively. The rule is simple. Praise amplifies when shared. Correction strengthens when private. When someone does exceptional work, tell everyone. When someone makes a mistake, tell them alone. Public praise motivates the individual and inspires the group. Public correction embarrasses the individual and intimidates the group. After Austerlitz, I didn't just celebrate victory privately. I made sure every soldier knew which units had performed with distinction, which officers had shown exceptional courage, which decisions had secured our triumph. I wanted success to be visible, celebrated, and contagious. But when officers made tactical errors or soldiers broke discipline, I addressed these matters away from the eyes of others, not to hide the problems, but to solve them without destroying the dignity of the people involved. But let me ask you this. When someone on your team excels, do you amplify their success or keep it to yourself? When someone struggles, do you coach them privately or critique them publicly? Do you build people up in front of others or tear them down? Public praise creates momentum. When people see excellence recognized, they want to pursue excellence themselves. When they watch good work get rewarded, they commit to doing good work. When they witness achievements celebrated, they strive for achievements of their own. Private. Correction preserves relationships. When you pull someone aside to address a problem, you show respect for their dignity. You demonstrate that your goal is improvement, not embarrassment. You prove that you see them as a person worth developing, not just a problem to be solved. The psychology is fundamental. People have two basic needs in any organization: to feel valued and to grow in capability. Public praise satisfies the first need. Private correction supports the second need. Together, they create the conditions for both loyalty and competence. I learned this lesson early in my military career. I watched commanders who ruled through public humiliation. Their subordinates became paralyzed by fear of making mistakes. They stopped taking initiative, stopped offering ideas, stopped pushing boundaries. The fear of public shame made them smaller, not better, but I also watched leaders who gave correction with dignity and respect. Their people became more willing to attempt difficult tasks, more likely to report problems honestly, more committed to continuous improvement. They grew stronger because they felt secure. This principle extends beyond correction to all feedback. When you need to challenge someone's thinking, do it privately. When you want to celebrate someone's growth, do it publicly. When you must address poor performance, handle it with discretion. When you can highlight excellent performance, share it widely. The goal is not to avoid difficult conversations. The goal is to have difficult conversations in ways that strengthen people rather than diminish them. Every correction should leave someone more capable than before. Every piece of feedback should build the relationship, not damage it. Your people are watching how you treat each individual. They're learning what to expect from you when they succeed and when they fail. Create a culture where success is celebrated and mistakes are learned from, where dignity is preserved and growth is pursued. Praise publicly, correct privately. This is how you build both competence and loyalty in the same action. Double standards destroy respect. You want excellence? Model it. Show them what it looks like. I demanded that my soldiers march 20 miles in a day when other armies managed 10. I required my officers to know the names of their men when other commanders barely knew their subordinates. I insisted on precision in planning when others accepted approximation. But here's what made the difference. I marched those 20 miles. Myself. I learned those names personally. I planned with that same precision I demanded from others. Standards without personal example are just empty words. Rules you don't follow yourself become suggestions others ignore. Excellence you don't model becomes hypocrisy that destroys your credibility. If you want others to rise to a higher level, you must live at that level consistently. Here's what most people don't understand about leadership standards. People don't follow what you say. They follow what you do. They don't measure themselves against your words. They measure themselves against your actions. Your behavior sets the real standard, regardless of what policies you write or speeches you give. I have seen commanders who demanded courage while staying safely behind the lines. I have watched leaders who required punctuality while arriving late to their own meetings. I have observed managers who insisted on quality while accepting mediocrity in their own work. Every one of them lost respect and influence over time. But I have also seen leaders who embodied the standards they set, who worked longer hours than they asked of others, who showed the same attention to detail they required from their teams, who demonstrated the commitment they expected everyone to maintain. These leaders didn't just get compliance, they inspired excellence. When I reorganized the French military, I didn't just change the rules. I changed my own behavior first. I studied harder than my generals. I worked longer hours than my staff. I accepted greater risks than my soldiers. Because I knew that any standard I set for others, I had to exceed myself. The principle is simple. You cannot export what you do not possess. You cannot demand discipline you don't practice. You cannot require excellence you don't demonstrate. You cannot expect commitment you don't exhibit. Your standards for others must be lower than your standards for yourself. But let me ask you this. What standards do you set for your team? And how do those standards compare to the standards you set for yourself? Are you asking others to do what you're unwilling to do? Are you requiring from them what you don't require from yourself? High standards create high performance, but only when they're supported by personal example. When people see you living up to the same expectations you have for them, they feel challenged, not criticized. They feel inspired, not imposed upon. They want to match your level, not resist your demands. During the Italian campaigns, I shared the same rations as my soldiers. I slept in the same conditions. I faced the same dangers, not because I had to, but because I understood that shared standards create shared commitment. When everyone operates by the same rules, everyone feels part of the same mission. Standards must be clear, achievable, and consistent. Clear means everyone understands exactly what's expected. Achievable means the standards stretch people without breaking them. Consistent means the same rules apply to everyone at every time. I had officers who thought their rank exempted them from certain requirements. I corrected this thinking immediately. In my army, courage was expected from everyone. Competence was demanded at every level. Dedication was required regardless of a position. The standard was the standard, regardless of who you were, but standards without support become punishment. You cannot simply demand excellence and then abandon people to figure out how to achieve it. You must provide the training, resources, and guidance that make high performance possible. I didn't just tell my marshals to win battles. I taught them strategy, shared intelligence, provided resources, and gave them the authority to make decisions. I set high expectations and then gave them everything they needed to meet those expectations. This is the difference between effective standards and arbitrary demands. Effective standards come with support. They challenge people to grow, not just to comply. They push everyone toward excellence, including the person setting them. Your standards reveal your values. Low standards communicate that mediocrity is acceptable. Inconsistent standards suggest that fairness doesn't matter. Personal exemptions from standards prove that leadership is about privilege, not responsibility, but high standards consistently. Applied and personally modeled create something powerful. They create a culture where excellence becomes normal, where quality becomes habit, where the best effort becomes the expected effort. Set your standards high. Then live above them. This is how you transform good people into great performers. Tasks create workers. Missions create believers. This chapter teaches how to elevate people with purpose. When I assigned Murat to lead the cavalry charge at Eylau, I didn't simply say, "Charge the enemy line." I told him we were about to turn the tide of history. I explained that his courage in the next 10 minutes would determine whether France remained free or fell under foreign domination. I connected his individual action to our collective destiny. That's the difference between giving a task and giving a mission. Tasks are about what you do. Missions are about why you do it. Tasks engage the hands. Missions engage the heart. Tasks produce compliance. Missions inspire commitment. When you give someone a task, you get their time. When you give someone a mission, you get their soul. Here's what most people don't understand about motivation. People don't just want to be busy. They want to be meaningful. They don't just want to complete assignments. They want to contribute to something important. They don't just want to do work. They want to do work that matters. I have seen leaders who treated their people like machines. Do this, then do that, then do the other thing. No context, no connection, no bigger picture. These people worked, but they didn't excel. They complied, but they didn't commit. They showed up, but they didn't stand out. But I have also seen leaders who connected every assignment to a larger purpose, who explained not just what needed to be done, but why it needed to be done, who helped people see how their individual contribution served the collective mission. These people didn't just work harder, they worked smarter, longer, and with genuine enthusiasm. The French Revolution gave me a perfect example of this principle. Before the Revolution, soldiers fought because they were ordered to fight. They served because service was their duty. But after the Revolution, they fought for liberty, equality, and fraternity. Same soldiers, same weapons, same tactics, but completely different level of commitment because they understood the mission. When you give someone a mission instead of just a task, you transform their relationship with the work. They stop asking, "What do I have to do?" and start asking, "How can I contribute?" They stop watching the clock and start watching for opportunities. They stop doing the minimum and start pursuing excellence. But let me ask you this. When you delegate work, do you explain the task or the mission? Do you tell people what to do, or do you help them understand why it matters? Do you give instructions, or do you share vision? A mission has 3 elements: purpose, impact, and connection. Purpose explains why the work matters. Impact describes what success will accomplish. Connection shows how individual effort serves collective goals. When I sent ambassadors to negotiate treaties, I didn't just give them talking points. I explained how their negotiations would secure peace for millions of people. I described how their success would strengthen France for generations. I connected their diplomatic skill to our national destiny. They didn't just represent France, they carried France's future in their hands. Purpose gives meaning to effort. When people understand why their work matters, they bring different energy to that work. They think more creatively about solutions. They persist longer through difficulties. They take pride in outcomes, not just activities. Impact helps people see beyond immediate tasks to ultimate results. When someone understands how their contribution fits into the larger picture, they make better decisions about priorities, quality, and innovation. They stop asking, "Is this good enough?" and start asking, "How can this be better?" Connection transforms individual work into team mission. When people see how their effort enables others to succeed, they become more collaborative, more supportive, more committed to collective excellence rather than just personal performance. This principle applies whether you're leading armies or managing projects. Whether you're running companies or coaching teams, whether you're governing nations or raising children, people rise to the level of the mission you give them. I didn't build the Grande Armée by assigning tasks. I built it by sharing a mission. We weren't just conquering territory, we were spreading the ideals of the revolution. We weren't just winning battles, we were securing the future of freedom. Every soldier carried not just a musket, but a piece of destiny. Transform your next assignment from a task into a mission. Instead of saying, complete this project, say, this project will solve a problem that matters. Instead of meet this deadline, say, this deadline ensures we can serve people who are counting on us. Instead of follow this process, say this. Process helps us achieve excellence that makes a difference. Tasks fill time. Missions fulfill people. Give them missions and watch what they become. Say what you'll do, then do it every time. Consistency builds credibility, and credibility breeds loyalty. At the Battle of Marengo, I told my troops we would attack at dawn. When dawn came, we attacked. At the negotiations in Campo Formio, I promised to withdraw troops by a certain date. On that date, the troops withdrew. When I established the continental system, I said Britain would be isolated from European trade. Every port under my control enforced that isolation. This is how trust is built. Not through grand gestures or eloquent speeches, but through the simple act of doing exactly what you said you would do, when you said you would do it, how you said you would do it. Every single time. Here's what most people don't understand about credibility. It's not built through perfection. It's built through predictability. People don't need you to be right about everything. They need you to be reliable in everything. They need to know that your word means something concrete, not just something convenient. I have seen leaders who made beautiful promises and failed to keep them. They always had excellent reasons for the failures: market conditions, unexpected obstacles, changed circumstances, resource constraints. But reasons don't rebuild trust. Only results rebuild trust. I have also seen leaders who made modest commitments and exceeded them consistently, who promised little but delivered much, who said what they meant and meant what they said. These leaders commanded respect not because they were perfect, but because they were dependable. Trust is the foundation of all influence. Without trust, your words carry no weight. Your promises generate no enthusiasm. Your vision inspires no commitment. People may listen to what you say, but they won't bet their future on what you promise. When I reorganized the French administration, I didn't announce sweeping changes that would take years to implement. I identified specific improvements I could accomplish immediately, announced those improvements publicly, and then delivered them on schedule. Each kept promise built credibility for the next promise. But let me ask you this: when you make commitments, do you keep them or explain them away? When you set deadlines, do you meet them or move them? When you give your word, do people know they can depend on it completely? Consistency has 3 levels: words, actions, and principles. Your words must align with your actions. Your actions must align with your principles, and all 3 must remain stable over time, regardless of changing circumstances. Word-action alignment means doing what you say you'll do. If you promise to review someone's work by Friday, review it by Friday. If you commit to attending a meeting, attend the meeting. If you agree to provide resources, provide the resources. Small commitments build trust for large commitments. To come action principle alignment means your behavior reflects your stated values. If you claim to value honesty, be honest even when it's inconvenient. If you say you prioritize excellence, pursue excellence even when it's expensive. If you declare commitment to fairness, be fair even when it's difficult. Stability over time means your character remains constant despite changing conditions. Your integrity doesn't depend on your mood. Your reliability doesn't vary with your stress level. Your principles don't shift with your circumstances. During the Egyptian campaign, supplies were delayed, weather was harsh, and enemy resistance was stronger than expected. But I had promised my soldiers that we would press forward until we achieved our objectives. Despite every difficulty, we pressed forward. Not because conditions were favorable, but because commitment is stronger than conditions. This is how you become someone others can count on completely. You make your word your bond. You treat commitments as sacred obligations. You understand that every promise kept or broken shapes your reputation for trustworthiness. But consistency doesn't mean rigidity. You can adapt your methods while maintaining your principles. You can change your tactics while keeping your commitments. You can adjust your approach while preserving your integrity. I modified battle plans based on enemy movements. I adjusted diplomatic strategies based on changing alliances. I reformed policies based on new information. But I never broke my word to allies, never abandoned soldiers under my command, never compromised the principles that defined my leadership. Trust takes years to build and seconds to destroy. Guard your credibility like you guard your life, because in leadership they are the same thing. People will rise to the level you expect. Demand more, but back it with reason, fairness, and support. I expected my officers to know the terrain of every battlefield, the capacity of every supply route, the morale of every unit under their command. I demanded that they study maps until they could draw them from memory, that they inspect equipment until they knew every weakness, that they understand their soldiers until they could predict their performance under pressure. These were not unreasonable demands. They were necessary standards for men who held other men's lives in their hands. And because I demanded excellence, I got excellence. Because I expected competence, I received competence. Because I required dedication, I inspired dedication. Here's what most people don't understand about expectations. Low expectations are not kindness. They are insults. When you expect little from people, you tell them you believe they are capable of little. When you demand much from people, you tell them you believe they can achieve much. People rise or fall to meet your expectations. I have seen leaders who set the bar so low that stepping over it required no effort. They called this being realistic or managing expectations, but what they really did was guarantee mediocrity. They ensured that people would never discover what they were truly capable of achieving. I have also seen leaders who expected excellence, but provided no pathway to achieve it. They demanded results without giving resources. They required performance without offering training. They set high standards without providing support. This is not leadership. This is cruelty disguised as ambition. True leadership demands much and provides much. It sets high expectations and offers high support. It requires excellence and teaches excellence. It challenges people to grow and helps them grow. When I promoted soldiers to officer rank, I didn't just give them new responsibilities. I gave them new training. I didn't just expect them to succeed. I taught them how to succeed. I didn't just demand performance. I developed their capacity for performance. But let me ask you this. What do you expect from the people around you? Do you challenge them to be better, or do you accept them as they are? Do you push them toward excellence, or do you accommodate their limitations? Do you demand their best effort, or do you settle for their convenient effort? Demanding leadership has 3 requirements: clarity, consistency, and support. People must know exactly what's expected, see that expectations apply equally to everyone, and receive the resources needed to meet those expectations. Clarity means specific standards, not vague aspirations. Instead of do your best, say complete this task to this standard by this deadline. Instead of work harder, say here's exactly what improvement looks like and how to measure it. Instead of be better, say these specific behaviors will produce these specific results. Consistency means the same standards for everyone. I didn't excuse poor performance because someone had good intentions. I didn't lower standards because someone faced personal difficulties. I didn't accept mediocrity because someone was likable. The mission was the mission, regardless of circumstances. Support means providing what people need to succeed, training for skills they lack, resources, for tasks they must complete, authority for decisions they must make, guidance when they face new challenges. You cannot demand what you will not enable. During the siege of Acre, I demanded that my engineers build trenches under constant enemy fire. This was dangerous, difficult work that required both courage and skill. But I didn't just demand this. Work. I provided the best equipment available, positioned artillery to suppress enemy fire, and personally supervised the operation to ensure their safety. I got extraordinary effort because I combined high expectations with strong support. The men knew I was asking much of them, but they also knew I was doing everything possible to help them succeed. If fairness doesn't mean treating everyone the same, it means giving everyone what they need to meet the same high standards. Some people need more training, some need more encouragement, some need more challenge, but everyone deserves the opportunity to excel. I had veterans who needed minimal guidance and recruits who required constant instruction. I had officers who thrived under pressure and others who performed better with detailed planning. But I expected the same level of competence from all of them, and I provided whatever support each one needed to achieve that competence. This is how you transform average people into exceptional performers. You expect more than they think the can give. You demand more than they think they can achieve. And then you provide everything they need to prove themselves wrong about their limitations. Expect excellence. Demand it, support it. And watch ordinary people accomplish extraordinary things. Nothing wins respect faster than presence in conversation. This chapter trains you to listen like a strategist, not a robot. Before the Battle of Austerlitz, I spent hours listening to my scouts describe enemy positions, not just hearing their words, but studying their expressions, noting their confidence levels, asking questions that revealed details they hadn't thought to mention. I listened to discover not just what they knew, but what they observed, what they sensed, what they feared. That intelligence won the battle before it began. But I only gained that intelligence because I listened with the intensity of a man whose life depended on understanding every detail, because it did. Here's what most people don't understand about listening. It's not about being polite, it's about being effective. When you listen with full attention, you gain information others miss. You understand motivations others ignore. You discover opportunities others overlook. Listening is not courtesy. Listening is strategy. I have seen leaders who talked through meetings, interrupted conversations, and answered questions before they were fully asked. They thought this showed decisiveness and expertise. Instead, it showed insecurity and ignorance. They missed crucial information because they were too busy broadcasting their own importance. But I have also seen leaders who listened with such focus that people felt compelled to share their deepest thoughts and most valuable insights. These leaders discovered problems before they became crises. They learned about opportunities before their competitors. They built relationships that became competitive advantages. When someone speaks to you, they are giving you intelligence, not just about the topic they're discussing, but about themselves, their priorities, their concerns, their capabilities. Every conversation is a reconnaissance mission. Every discussion is a chance to understand terrain others have not mapped. During diplomatic negotiations, I listened not just to the words being spoken, but to the words being avoided. I paid attention to what excited my counterparts and what made them uncomfortable. I observed their body language, their energy levels, their response patterns. This intelligence often mattered more than the formal proposals being discussed. But let me ask you this. When someone talks to you, are you listening to understand or listening to respond? Are you gathering information or preparing arguments? Are you focused on their message or planning your reply? Strategic listening has 3 levels: content, context, and character. Content is what they're saying. Context is why they're saying it. Character is what it reveals about who they are and what they value. Content listening captures facts, figures, and explicit information. This is the basic level of attention that most people achieve most of the time. You hear the words and understand the literal meaning. Context listening understands the situation behind the words. Why is this person telling you this information now? What do they want you to do with it? What problem are they trying to solve? What outcome are they hoping to achieve? Context reveals motivation. Character listening observes what the conversation reveals about the person speaking, what matters to them, what threatens them, what excites them, how do they think, how do they make decisions. Character listening builds understanding that lasts beyond the current conversation. I learned this lesson during my rise through the military ranks. Officers who listened only to content received orders and executed them mechanically. Officers who listened for context understood the mission and adapted effectively. But officers who listened for character understood their commanders and anticipated their needs. Full attention means eliminating distractions. Put away devices, stop mental planning, quit preparing responses, focus completely on understanding what this person is communicating and why they're communicating it now. Ask questions that demonstrate engagement. Help me understand, what concerns you most about when you say X? Do you mean these phrases show you're not just hearing, but thinking about what you're hearing? Reflect back what you've understood. So your main concern is, it sounds like your priority is, let me make sure I understand. This confirms comprehension and often prompts additional information. Remember names, details, and follow up on previous conversations. People notice when you remember what they told you. They notice when you care enough to ask how things developed. This attention builds relationships that become resources. Listen like your success depends on it, because it does. You don't chase respect. You create conditions where it naturally flows back to you. Lead with strength, not desperation. I have commanded kings and been commanded by peasants. I have negotiated with emperors and taken orders from corporals. In every situation, the same principle applied. Respect flows toward competence, character, and confidence. It cannot be demanded, purchased, or manipulated. It can only be earned through consistent demonstration of worthiness. When I met with Tsar Alexander at Tilsit, I didn't approach him as a supplicant seeking approval. I came as an equal offering partnership. I showed respect for his position, without diminishing my own. I acknowledged his authority without surrendering mine. The result was mutual respect that led to productive negotiation. Here's what most people don't understand about respect. It operates like a mirror. The respect you give reflects back to you, but only if it comes from strength, not weakness. When you respect others from a position of confidence, they respect you in return. When you respect others from desperation, they see weakness and lose respect for you. I have seen leaders who confused respect with submission. They deferred to everyone, agreed with everything, apologized for existing. They thought this would earn them appreciation and acceptance. Instead, it earned them dismissal and contempt. People don't respect those who don't respect themselves. But I have also seen leaders who show genuine respect for others while maintaining complete confidence in themselves. They honored other people's expertise without pretending they had none. They acknowledged other people's contributions without minimizing their own. They created environments where respect flowed in all directions. Respect is reciprocal, but it must be initiated from strength. When you approach others with confidence in your own worth, they are more likely to recognize that worth. When you demonstrate respect for their capabilities, they become more willing to acknowledge yours. During the early days of my consulship, I worked with senators who had governed Rome for decades. I could have approached them with arrogance, dismissing their experience as outdated, or I could have approached them with insecurity, treating their expertise as superior to mine. Instead, I approached them with confident respect. I acknowledged their knowledge of Roman politics while demonstrating my understanding of modern warfare. I respected their experience while sharing my vision. I honored their past contributions while outlining future possibilities. This approach created collaboration instead of competition. But let me ask you this. When you interact with others, do you give respect from strength or from weakness? Do you honor their abilities while maintaining confidence in your own? Do you show appreciation without diminishing yourself? The key is proportional respect. Give respect equivalent to what you receive. Show honor proportional to what others demonstrate. Offer courtesy that matches what comes back to you, but never give more respect than you give yourself. When someone treats you with dismissal, don't respond with desperation for their approval. Maintain your dignity and adjust your approach. When someone shows you genuine respect, return it fully and build on that foundation. When someone honors your expertise, acknowledge theirs in return. I learned this principle during my negotiations with foreign powers. Treaties were built on mutual respect between sovereign nations. When I approached negotiations from France's strength, other nations respected France's position. When I showed appropriate respect for their interests, they showed respect for ours, but respect cannot be begged for or bought. The moment you start chasing respect, you signal that you don't believe you deserve it. The moment you try to purchase respect with favors or flattery, you prove that you don't understand what respect really is. Respect is recognition of worth. If you don't believe in your own worth, others won't believe in it either. If you don't carry yourself like someone worthy of respect, others won't treat you like someone worthy of respect. This doesn't mean being arrogant or dismissive. Arrogance repels respect rather than attracting it. True confidence acknowledges others' worth while maintaining awareness of your own worth. It shows respect for capabilities wherever they exist, including your own. Build your competence until you know you deserve respect. Develop your character until you can give respect from strength. Cultivate your confidence until you don't need others' approval to know your own worth. Then interact with others from that foundation. Show respect for their abilities, experience, and contributions, but do it from a position of strength, not a position of need. Do it because you choose to, not because you have to. Respect given from strength multiplies and returns. Respect given from weakness disappears and leaves you emptier than before. Lead with strength, respect from confidence, and watch how the world responds to someone who knows their own worth. Words may guide, but example transforms. Show them how to move, how to carry burden, how to respond under pressure. At the Battle of Arcole, my soldiers hesitated to cross a bridge under heavy enemy fire. I could have given speeches about courage, duty, and honor. Instead, I grabbed a flag and led the charge myself. No words were needed. My example said everything that needed to be said about what I expected from them and what they could expect. From me, they followed. Not because of what I said, but because of what I did. Actions speak louder than words because actions require commitment that words do not. Anyone can talk about courage. Only some will demonstrate it when it matters most. Here's what most people don't understand about inspiration. It doesn't come from eloquent speeches or motivational slogans. It comes from watching someone do what you thought was impossible, endure what you thought was unbearable, achieve what you thought was unreachable. Example expands people's sense of what's possible. I have seen leaders who tried to inspire through words alone. They gave beautiful speeches about excellence, commitment, and sacrifice. But when pressure mounted, they retreated to safety while asking others to take risks. When hardships came, they sought comfort while demanding others endure discomfort. Their words became meaningless because their actions contradicted them. But I have also seen leaders who inspired through consistent example. They didn't talk about working hard, they worked harder than anyone else. They didn't discuss taking responsibility, they took responsibility for everything. They didn't explain commitment, they demonstrated it daily through their choices. Example teaches in ways that words cannot. When people see you handle pressure calmly, they learn how to handle pressure. When they watch you make difficult decisions decisively, they learn decision-making. When they observe you maintain standards under stress, they learn to maintain standards. During the retreat from Moscow, I didn't give daily speeches about perseverance. I walked with the soldiers, shared their rations, endured the same cold. My presence communicated more than any words could about our shared commitment to survival and return to France. People learn by imitation more than instruction. They copy. Behaviors they observe more readily than behaviors they hear described. When you model the conduct you want to see, you make that conduct seem normal, achievable, and expected. But let me ask you this. What are you teaching through your example? When people watch how you handle stress, what are they learning? When they observe your work habits, what standards are you setting? When they see how you treat others, what behavior are you modeling? Inspirational leadership has three components: visible excellence, shared hardship, and consistent character. People must see you performing at the level you expect from them. They must witness you enduring the same difficulties you ask them to endure. They must observe the same character in private moments that you display in public moments. Visible excellence means performing your own responsibilities at the highest level. You cannot inspire others to pursue excellence while accepting mediocrity in your own work. Excellence must be visible, consistent, and uncompromising. Shared. Hardship means experiencing the same difficulties as those you lead. You cannot ask others to make sacrifices you're unwilling to make yourself. When you share the burden, you earn the right to ask others to carry their portion. Consistent character means being the same person in every situation. Your values don't change based on circumstances. Your principles don't shift based on convenience. Your integrity doesn't depend on who's watching. I promoted based on merit because I wanted others to pursue merit. I studied continuously because I wanted others to value learning. I took responsibility for failures because I wanted others to take responsibility. I faced dangers personally because I wanted others to face dangers courageously. Example is the most powerful form of communication because it cannot be faked or manipulated. People can question your words, but they cannot argue with your actions. They can doubt your sincerity, but they cannot deny your behavior. When you want to inspire courage, be courageous. When you want to inspire excellence, be excellent. When you want to inspire commitment, be committed. When you want to inspire integrity, be integrity in action. Stop trying to motivate people with words. Start inspiring them with example. Show them what excellence looks like. Demonstrate what commitment means. Model what leadership is. Your example is your most persuasive argument and your most powerful teacher. Use it wisely. Empires are built publicly, but loyalty is forged privately. Learn to inspire on the individual level. I knew the names of common soldiers in my army. I remembered details about their families, their hometowns, their previous battles. When I walked through camp, I would stop to ask Private Dubois about his wounded brother, inquire whether Sergeant Martin had received news from his wife, congratulate Corporal Rousseau on his promotion to the Guard. These weren't publicity stunts or political gestures. They were investments in individual relationships that created collective loyalty. A soldier who feels known personally will fight differently than a soldier who feels like an anonymous number. Here's what most people don't understand about influence. Mass inspiration gets attention, but individual attention creates devotion. Anyone can motivate a crowd temporarily. Only leaders who connect personally can inspire individuals permanently. I have seen commanders who could deliver stirring speeches to thousands, but couldn't have meaningful conversations with individuals. They knew how to work a room, but not how to work a relationship. Their influence was broad but shallow. It faded when the excitement of the moment passed. But I have also seen leaders who invested deeply in individual relationships. They knew their people's strengths, fears, ambitions, and concerns. They could speak to each person's specific motivations and help them overcome their particular obstacles. Their influence was narrow but deep. It lasted long after formal authority ended. Individual influence operates differently than mass influence. In groups, people respond to energy, emotion, and shared identity. In private conversations, they respond to attention, understanding, and personal connection. What moves a crowd is different from what moves a person. When I met privately with my marshals, I didn't give the same generic encouragement to everyone. I spoke to Murat about his need for recognition and glory. I discussed with Davout his perfectionist tendencies and strategic thinking. I addressed Ney's impulsiveness and natural courage. Each conversation was tailored to that individual's character and needs. This personal approach created stronger bonds than any general motivation could achieve. Each marshal felt understood, valued, and personally connected to our shared mission. They didn't just serve the empire, they served someone who knew them as individuals. But let me ask you this: how well do you know the people you lead? Do you understand their individual motivations, concerns, and aspirations? Do you speak to their specific needs, or do you treat everyone the same? Personal influence has 4 elements: attention, understanding, investment, and follow-through. You must give people focused attention, develop genuine understanding of their situation, invest time in their success, and follow through on commitments you make to them. Attention means being fully present in individual conversations. No distractions. No multitasking, no rushing toward the next appointment. When someone has your complete attention, they feel valued in a way that no public recognition can match. Understanding means learning what matters to each person, not just their job responsibilities, but their personal goals, family situations, career aspirations, and individual challenges. People are more likely to trust leaders who understand their whole situation, not just their work output. Investment means spending time helping individuals succeed, providing coaching, removing obstacles, creating opportunities, making connections. When people see you actively working to advance their interests, they become willing to work actively to advance yours. Follow-through means keeping commitments you make in private conversations. If you promise to look into someone's request, look into it. If you say you'll consider their suggestion, consider it. If you offer to help with their development, help with it. Trust is built through consistent follow-through on small promises. Obas made it a practice to have private conversations with officers before major battles. Not to give orders, those were handled in staff meetings, but to understand their personal state of mind, address any specific concerns, and ensure they felt personally prepared for what was coming. These conversations often revealed information that formal briefings missed: personal fears that could affect performance, family situations that required accommodation, individual strengths that could be better utilized, knowledge that could only be gained through personal connection. The most powerful armies are made up of individuals who feel personally connected to their leader and personally invested in the mission. The most effective organizations are built on relationships, not just structures. The strongest teams consist of people who trust their leader individually, not just collectively. Public leadership gets you compliance. Private leadership gets you commitment. Mass motivation creates temporary energy. Individual attention creates lasting loyalty. Invest in people one at a time. Know them personally. Understand them individually. Support them specifically. This is how you transform a group of followers into a community of believers. Your greatest influence will always be exercised one person at a time. The first time someone tests your boundaries is the only time you need to respond. Tolerance of disrespect is permission for more. During my consulship, a senator interrupted me mid-sentence during a formal address to the assembly. He dismissed my words with a wave of his hand and began speaking as though I had not been recognized to speak. The chamber fell silent, waiting to see how the young upstart would respond to this public humiliation. I stopped speaking. I looked directly at him. I waited until he finished his comments. Then I said quietly, "Senator, when I have finished my remarks, I will be happy to hear yours through the proper channels." I resumed my speech exactly where I had left off. He never interrupted me again. Neither did anyone else. Here's what most people don't understand about disrespect. It always starts small. A dismissed comment, an eye roll during your presentation, a muttered criticism just loud enough for others to hear. If you ignore these early tests, you invite bigger challenges to your authority. I have seen leaders who let disrespect slide because they didn't want to seem petty or oversensitive. They told themselves it wasn't worth addressing. They hoped it would stop on its own. They convinced themselves that ignoring it showed strength. Every one of them eventually faced more serious challenges to their leadership. But I have also seen leaders who addressed disrespect immediately and calmly. They didn't overreact or become emotional. They simply made it clear that disrespectful behavior would not be tolerated. These leaders rarely faced ongoing challenges to their authority because they established clear boundaries from the beginning. Disrespect is not just about you, it's about the entire organization's culture. When you allow one person to treat you disrespectfully in front of others, you send a message that disrespect is acceptable. Others will test the same boundaries. Standards will erode. Authority will fragment. When a junior officer spoke sarcastically about my orders during a staff meeting, I didn't launch into a speech about military hierarchy or proper respect. I simply said, "Captain, report to my tent after this meeting." I addressed the behavior privately, but immediately the message was clear to everyone present. Disrespect has consequences. The key is to respond proportionally and professionally. Don't escalate unnecessarily, but don't ignore completely. Address the behavior without attacking the person. Make it clear that while different opinions are welcome, disrespectful expression of those opinions is not. But let me ask you this. When someone treats you disrespectfully, how do you respond? Do you address it immediately or hope it goes away? Do you set clear boundaries or let things slide? Do you maintain your standards or compromise them to avoid conflict? Effective boundary setting has three components: immediate response, calm delivery, and consistent application. You must address disrespect when it happens, not when it's convenient. You must respond with composure, not emotion. And you must apply the same standard to everyone, regardless of their position or relationship to you. Immediate response doesn't mean interrupting or creating drama. It means addressing the behavior as soon as appropriately possible. Sometimes that's in the moment. Sometimes that's in a private conversation immediately afterward, but it's never days or weeks later when the moment has passed. Calm delivery means maintaining your composure while setting boundaries. Emotional reactions undermine your authority. Professional responses reinforce it. You can be firm without being angry. You can be clear without being harsh. Consistent application means the same standards apply to everyone. You cannot tolerate disrespect from high performers while punishing it from others. You cannot excuse behavior from people you like while condemning it from people you don't. Inconsistency destroys credibility. I applied the same standards of respect to veterans and recruits, to marshals and corporals, to allies and subordinates. Position might affect consequences, but it never affected expectations. Everyone was expected to maintain professional respect in their interactions. Remember this: people will treat you exactly as badly as you allow them to treat you. If you tolerate small disrespects, you will face larger disrespects. If you excuse occasional rudeness, you will encounter regular rudeness. If you ignore boundary violations, you will experience boundary destruction. But when you consistently maintain standards of respect, people learn to meet those standards. When you address disrespect immediately and professionally, it rarely repeats. When you show that you value yourself enough to demand appropriate treatment, others learn to value you appropriately as well. Set your boundaries clearly. Defend them consistently. Maintain them professionally. This is how you earn respect that lasts. Respect fades for the ordinary. Loyalty dies with weakness. but those who lead with conviction are remembered forever. Be that leader. I have been dead for 2 centuries, yet my methods are still studied in military academies around the world. My strategies are analyzed by business leaders. My principles are quoted by politicians, not because I was perfect, but because I led with absolute conviction and created results that outlasted my lifetime. This is the true measure of leadership, not what you accomplish during your tenure, but what continues after you are gone. Not the temporary compliance you achieve, but the permanent influence you create. Not the position you hold, but the legacy you leave. Here's what most people don't understand about legacy. It's not built through grand gestures or dramatic moments. It's built through consistent application of principles under pressure. It's built through decisions that sacrifice short-term comfort for long-term integrity. It's built by being the same leader in private that you are in public. I have seen leaders whose influence disappeared the moment they left office. Their authority was borrowed from their position, not earned through their character. When the title was gone, the respect vanished. When the power ended, the following ended. Nothing remained because nothing substantial had been built. But I have also seen leaders whose influence grew after they departed. People continued to ask, what would they have done in this situation? Their principles continued to guide decisions. Their example continued to inspire actions. Their leadership lived on because it had been built on something deeper than temporary authority. The leaders who create lasting legacy share certain characteristics. They lead from conviction, not convenience. They maintain standards under pressure. They sacrifice personal comfort for collective good. They build people up rather than tear them down. They create value that outlasts their presence. At Waterloo, I faced my final defeat, but even in defeat, I maintained the principles that had defined my leadership. I didn't blame others for the failure. I didn't abandon my responsibilities. I accepted the consequences of my decisions with the same resolve I had shown in victory. This is how legacy is preserved, even in failure, by maintaining your character when everything else is stripped away, by remaining true to your principles when circumstances tempt you to abandon them, by showing the same integrity in defeat that you showed in triumph. But let me ask you this. What legacy are you building through your daily leadership? Will people remember how you treated them under pressure? Will they model the standards you demonstrated? Will your influence continue after your formal authority ends? Legacy leadership requires 3 commitments: principle over convenience, people over position, and purpose over personal gain. These commitments must guide every decision, especially when they cost you something valuable. Principle over convenience means doing what's right, regardless of what's easy. It means maintaining your standards when maintaining them is difficult. It means keeping your word when breaking it would be beneficial. It means choosing integrity over advantage every single time. People over position means developing others, even when their growth might overshadow your own accomplishments. It means sharing credit generously and taking responsibility completely. It means caring more about their success than your recognition. Purpose over personal gain means serving something larger than yourself. It means making decisions based on what serves the mission, not what serves your career. It means sacrificing your comfort, convenience, and sometimes your interests for the greater good. Throughout my career, I promoted officers who might one day challenge my authority. I shared strategies that others might use against me. I built institutions that could function without me, because I understood that true leadership creates leaders, not just followers. The test of your leadership is not how well things function while you are there. The test is how well they function after you leave. Did you build people or just use them? Did you create systems or just control them? Did you develop capabilities or just exploit them? I am remembered not because I was emperor, but because of how I used that power. Not because I won battles, but because of how I prepared for them. Not because I commanded armies, but because of how I treated the soldiers in those armies. Your position is temporary, your authority is borrowed, your influence is earned daily. But your legacy is built through the consistent application of character under pressure. It is created through decisions that prioritize long-term integrity over short-term advantage. Lead with conviction. Maintain your principles. Develop your people. Serve your purpose. Create value that outlasts your presence. This is how you build a legacy worth leaving. The world remembers leaders who stood for something. Be someone worth remembering. If this message spoke to you, subscribe for more powerful mindset content. Let us know in the comments what part hit you the hardest. You already have what it takes. Now, go prove it.